everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are diving into Season 3 of Jujutsu Kaisen, Episode 3. And I'm going to be real with you all. I'm recording this on Saturday, so it will come out Sunday on Patreon. And I meant to record this Thursday night, had a meeting for work, was like, I'm not getting back at 9 o'clock and trying to record an episode. No, my energy will be zapped after a day of work and the meeting. And then on Friday, I just felt like garbage. I felt like boo-boo garbage and was like, no, if I'm recording Jujutsu Kaisen, if I'm getting into makeup with a wig on, getting into cosplay, then I'm going to be at 100% peak physical condition to handle Jujutsu Kaisen. And luckily I woke up this morning and was like, yes, today's the day. So I am being Yuki, not Yukio. Be Happy was like, you do realize that it's Yuki. I was like, yes. So it's Yuki, not Yukio. I'm imagining Yuki as a figure skater in another world. But I'm cosplaying as Yuki this episode because I feel like Yuki might have some things to say to Tengen because she seemed to have that in mind. So we'll see if that'll happen. This wig needs to be conditioned and washed after this wear. It's been wore a few times and it's starting to fray, but we're gonna make it work today. So I have a lot to talk about from the comments that you all talked about, and I hope you stick around to hear that before starting the reaction. So let's just dive into that, shall we? Sidja Vidstige 8019 for episodes 1 and 2 said, I'm sure you've already been made plenty aware, but Yuki is in her late 20s, if not older. I had not been made aware of that, but that checks out, so that's good to know. I could see her being like not quite Gojo and Geto's age, but like really close to it. She does come off as like a more mature woman. Potater, for episodes 1 and 2, says, one thing I found amusing is that Naoya, okay, speaking of ages, Yuki being in her 20s makes perfect sense. Totally fine. I was, to say the least, floored when Potater pointed this out, and I had the blink emoji where the guy's like, the blink moment, saying, one thing I found amusing is Naoya is the same age as Nanami. What's the opposite of adult of all adults? The brat of all brats! Just the comparison to it to maturity makes it comical. The Zenins are something else. And thus, the Discord spun a brand new nickname for Naoya. Because, let's be real, pardon my language, but fuckboy is kind of... I don't like saying the F-bomb. I usually reserve that for, like, specific moments of... You have to be at the most dramatic of all dramaticism for me to say the F word. So I need a new nickname for Naoya. And Nepo Baby Naoya came out of the Discord. I was like, Nepo Baby Naoya, as my dog wants me to throw this toy, is just kind of perfect. Nepo Baby Naoya. So we're going to call him Nepo Naoya. Nepo Naoya. Also, I wanted to point out to you all, I didn't point out in the video last week, but on Discord I pointed out, this is the yaoi that I was referring to in the discussion, that the main character seems a bit like Naoya. But look, I was also pointing out in the Discord, I'm like, so here's the reference. I'm like, in this spin-off of this yaoi, the top is a Kundere preschool teacher who just happens to also be able to dropkick somebody in the throat. He's great. Love him. He's the best part about the spin-off. And then Anime Annie was like, it kind of reminds me of Choso, doesn't it? And I was like, oh, no! I don't want to do that to Choso. As much as I love Choso, which is a lot, I do not want to curse Choso with being in a ship with Naoya. That just seems like that's insulting to Choso. But if some of y'all do it, if some of y'all want to do that, that is not here, there, or my responsibility. So, Pip Pips, love that name. Pip Pip says, Gojo mentioned at the end of Jujutsu Kaisen 0 that Yuta is a descendant of Sugawara Michizane, making Yuta and Gojo super distant relatives. Thank you for reminding me. There's a couple reminders from the Volume 0 in these comments, and I'm glad you all pointed them out because it has been a little while since I've watched that. So, when Tengen was saying descendant of Michizane, they're referring to Yuta, which is interesting. It also goes with Be Happy adding that Tengen left out Yuki, rejecting her the moment she stepped in. That all makes sense. I just like the idea. One, the fact that Yuta and Gojo are distantly related makes sense for Yuta's aura kind of seeming like Gojo's in a way. But also I just imagine like a giant family reunion and Yuta just shows up and gets a takeout box and he's like, I'm kind of related. And then he just leaves. That's what I imagine. So yeah, Shimoyama pointed out that Furudate, the executor of Will from episode 1 and episode 2, their voice actor was Nishimura Tomomichi, who recently passed away. So R.I.P. That's sad. At least their voice gets to get heard in this medium for episode 1. Naoya's kimono style is also pointed out to be a shosei style, which is a very normal style that men wear, usually college students or those who are live-in helpers for the household. I find it interesting because I could not picture Naoya as a live-in household helper for anyone, and even if he was, I wouldn't hire him, so that's fun. Anime Annie had this really good comment about Choso, and saying, Itadori finally called Choso Big Brother. I love that's how he introduces him now. Though, I also love that Itadori doesn't call him Oni-chan, like Choso wanted him to at the end of season 2, but rather Aniki. Still a familiar term, but honorific in a way of saying Big Brother. Aniki makes me instantly think of Yakuza, which, if you're talking about this being like a gaggle of characters together, I think that's very appropriate. It shows that, yes, Itadori has now fully accepted he's actually related to Choso, and that he's not just another crazy person like Toto, but denotes that they only have known each other for potentially several days, or at most a couple of weeks. And for some of that, Choso did attack and temporarily incapacitate him. So Itadori's like, I'm going to accept you as my brother, but I'm not going to call you little bro, Oni-chan. He's like, Aniki. So it's more honorific. I like that. I think that works much better. I think even though I could totally see Yuuji saying Oni-chan, I think given the circumstances, it's a better choice. And then they said, this I had not thought about, and I was like, this is possible foreshadowing, and I'm super excited about it. My first fear when I read the rule with the Culling Game about being able to add a rule once you get to 100 points is if any player involved are psychopaths, or in a similar vein to the older creepy sorcerer in season 2 that skinned people and the one that resurrected Toji, what's to stop them from going on a killing spree of non-sorcerers to get those 100 points nice and quick? Then my second thought after reading all the rules was, Brain-Kun has created this little game, so does that mean that all those times we saw them playing the game of life and Mahjong was because Brain-Kun likes to play games and was building up to a much more terrifying game with real consequences? Oh, no, that was foreshadowing. We just didn't know it at the time. That was high-key foreshadowing. Gege's like, oh look, they're playing the game of life. Can't imagine that's gonna happen in real time. No, my thing was, and I talked to Anime Annie about this in the comment, is I think that since technically Choso is the only one who is still alive that's played with Brain-Kun. Everybody else did. Mahito's gone, Jogo's gone, it's down to just Choso. So Choso has played the game with Brain-Kun. So I'm wondering if it's a foreshadowing of Choso being one of the only characters that's going to be able to figure out what Brain-Kun's doing and possibly strategize. We'll see. We'll see if that happens. I'm calling it now, though. So thank you, Anime Annie. Alex Johnson, here we go. So Alex Johnson did point this out, and I want to kind of just touch base on this. But Alex Johnson said, when I watched this episode, I thought the grandfather saying, but Kaori died, was to imply that Brain-Kun took over Kaori's body like he did with Geto, but Yuji's father is in denial about it. It sort of reminded me of the summer Hikaru died. I am glad you used that phrasing. The moderator, Be Happy, and I talked about this because the moderator was like, do you want to know this that's not brought up again? And I didn't mind knowing that this was a correction, that what he said by but Kaori died means that Kaori is the woman that Brain-Kun inhabited. What I was kind of like, I told Be Happy about it later. I was like, ooh, I don't want to know if stuff like that is not brought up again, because then I'm like, what do you mean it's not brought up again? What do you mean it's not brought up again? What do you mean Gege's not talking about it? We still have a lot of story to go. What do you mean it's not brought up again? And I was like, what? So Gege better talk about Yuji's parents again before the end of this series. If this is the only time we see them or get any remote discussion of them, I'm going to have a bone to pick with Gege. There will be a strongly worded letter written to the establishment if this is the only thing that is mentioned about them. I can't imagine that Brain-Kun and Yuji are not going to have a confrontation and this is brought out. I cannot imagine that's not going to happen. So I'm hoping it doesn't, but I don't want spoilers. Please don't tell me. I will find out. You all know this. So the fact that Kaori died, though, supposedly, I have so many questions. I'm like, how did she die? Why was she brought back to life? Was she pregnant when she died? Was she pregnant when she died? Did she come back to life when Brain-Kun took it over? Look, the implication with that is, because if she died while pregnant with Yuuji, there's no way he lived. There's no way. That's just not possible. That's not humanly possible. So the implication is that Kaori died, the grandpa knew it, and was like, oh, she dead. And then Brain-Kun took her over. She came back to life. And then her and Jean got it on. And then had Yuuji. Now, there are a couple implications with that. One is that she wasn't able to have kids, but then Brain-Kun taking her over allowed her to have kids, which my own cousin, this has happened before. They couldn't have kids for the longest time, and then something happened, a traumatic life event happened, and then they were able to have kids. So it's possible. It is scientifically possible. Not going to say that it's not. However, the other implication is Brain-Kun is... I don't even know if trans is the word. I don't even know what gender or biological association we give to Brain-Kun, because I'm like, so you were basically a woman, had sex with Yuji's dad, got pregnant with Yuji, and gave birth to him. Akutami, I need answers. And if you don't give me any more answers after this one scene, we are going to have words. So I don't want to know, but I am going to be speculating this entire time. So get ready. If I'm wrong, I don't care. Y'all can just sit on your hands and be like, Romania, and just let me be. Because I'm like, the implications of that are insane. He probably would have been fine in Geto's body if Gojo and him got it on. I'm just saying, based on what we've found out. What? Then you add on the, like, misogyny of the Zenin clan, but he's from the Kamo clan, so it's a little bit different, but still... oh my God. There's too many questions with this whole thing. We're going to have to put the parentage out to the side and just let it be. But Be Happy did add to this, saying that in episode 23 of season 2, Choso said he had 3 parents. His mother, Brain-Kun, and Kamo Noritoshi. So the cursed womb paintings were procreated with Kamo Noritoshi's DNA, which means they inherited the blood manipulation technique that belongs to the Kamo clan. While Yuuji doesn't have any technique known, he was born with, otherwise Gojo would have detected it in episode 6 of season 1. As Gojo said in that episode, either a sorcerer is born with the technique or not. So here's the deal. This is where it gets kind of crazy. Choso and the Death Womb paintings' father is Brain-Kun. And then Yuji's mother is Brain-Kun. But because Yuji's mom was not Brain-Kun's actual body, and thus Brain-Kun's actual DNA as Kamo Noritoshi, Yuji did not inherit the blood manipulation technique. That's the thing. The fact of something being someone's mother and father feels very Omegaverse. It feels very biblical, angel-esque, like just zaniness. But that's basically how I understand it. And the reason why Choso said 3 parents is because Choso knows Kamo Noritoshi knows their birth mother, and then Brain-Kun, which ironically is Kamo Noritoshi, is the one that brought him back to life through the body that they used as a vessel. So that's where the 3 parents in my mind comes from. If I'm wrong, don't tell me. I'll find out later. But yeah, that's how I understand it. So it's just, wow, that's messed up. So messed up! Be Happy also says Yuta used a reverse technique before in Jujutsu Kaisen 0 when he healed Inumaki. Of course he did. Panda and Maki after Geto almost killed them. Now I feel like Celine Dion is playing in the background. It's all coming back to me now. Yes. As far as we know, there are only 3 special grades that can use this. Gojo, Yuta can heal with the reverse curse technique, and Shoko. Well, if Gojo and Yuta go down, at least we got Shoko. Don't jinx it, Romania. Yuji's moral compass, I liked this comment as well, is more grounded and realistic and thus more solid than Geto's was. Geto was more utopic. The moment it crashed on reality's rocks, it shattered to 1,000 pieces. I love that. So my question is how Brain-Kun factors into this, because Brain-Kun has taken over Geto, and then Yuji, I'm glad the apples fell a little bit further from the tree. I'm just going to say that. So yeah, those are my comments. I'm sorry I've wasted so much time, but just, we hit the ground running last week, and it was so incredible, and I was just obsessed with episodes 1 and 2. Do I think episode 3 is going to be as crazy as those first 2 episodes? Probably not. I mean, it feels like the pilot comes out, and then the follow-up episode is usually like a little more low-key. That's what I'm expecting going into this, but who knows? Gege may have just hit the accelerator and went, let's just go balls to the walls and just go with it. And I'm like, all right. So I want to know more about Tengen. I want to know about Excalibur. I'm still just, this whole week, I've just been thinking of Tengen in this white space, dancing around, because he's in all white. If you've watched Soul Eater, Excalibur's in all white. I want Tengen to almost be as annoying as Excalibur. It's been a while since I've seen Soul Eater. But anyway, thank you all so much for the support. The comments have been overwhelming and amazing, and I am so appreciative of it. So you all are fantastic people. Thank you. Keep it up. Just please no spoilers. I've been doing great. I got on to post something on Twitter one time this week, and a little Nanami thing popped up, and I was like, oh, that's cute. I'll share it in the channel. And my moderator was like, why are you there? I was like, I was just there for a hot second. So anyway, let's get it started. Okay, so also I am skipping the OP. The mods have said it's not safe. If there is any character or person involved in the OP that I haven't seen yet in the show, that's a spoiler, so we're going to wait on it. So, because some people were like, oh, you can watch it. I'm like, I don't think I can. So, y'all just gonna have to be patient. I will see it eventually. It'll be all right, y'all. But anyway, I got my coffee. I'm ready to go, y'all. We're not gonna waste any more time. We are gonna start on episode 3 of Jujutsu Kaisen season 3 at like the 1 minute 28 second mark. And we're gonna do that here in 3, 2, 1. And I will see you all on the other side. Now you may be thinking to yourself, I just watched 24 minutes of Gege Akutami laying out the entire plot of the series, and I'm confused, and that is where I come in. Yuki is here with Romania Black to help explain this insanity that is the Culling Game. When we had that whole breakdown last week, I thought that was going to be it, and I thought, okay, well, that seems a little confusing, but okay. No, Gege was just like, Gege basically sat down and went, I don't want none of y'all bitching because you don't understand the plot. So I'm going to take an entire chapter or 2 chapters to break down everything for you. And then you have no excuse to not understand what's going on. So that's what we're going to do. Now, Whiteboard-Kun, thank God I overbreak. Thank God overbreak I got fine tipped markers so I can draw. This would normally take up like both sides of Whiteboard-Kun, but we basically are going to be walking through, and I'm going to adjust my mic so hopefully y'all can hear me. We are going to be walking through 4 different sets of plot elements that need to be talked about in this discussion. First of all, the objective of Kenjaku, which is essentially Brain-Kun. Then we're going to be doing the Culling Game objective and how it relates to all of this. Then what Yuji's friend mission, literally Care Bears the mission. Is this the Care Bears movie? Is it? We're going to see. But the Care Bears mission, and then the actions each person is taking, and my opinions about who's going to have it easy and who's going to have it mother trucking hard in this season. Because I'm feeling a little bit of an outlier in all this of who has the hardest job to do, and for various reasons. So... Also, we've been introduced into 2 new characters in this episode. One character, I've taken some screenshots I'm going to put up here alongside you all, that's going to be introduced, as well as Angel. Again, Tatsuki Fujimoto and Gege, they just sat down at a coffee shop one day and they're like, so, angels. And decided to go about it in vastly different ways. I'm not going to spoil Chainsaw Man for you all, but you all should read Chainsaw Man. In the first season, you're introduced to a character. That's all I'll say. But anyway, so we have a lot to go over in this, so we might as well dive in. I like Tengen. It's interesting seeing Tengen. I like them. I especially appreciate Tengen's tenacity and concern for their own well-being, which is kind of interesting because Tengen is immortal they're not ageless, but they are immortal. They keep on getting reincarnated over and over again. Now they've reached this weird point. As I was writing on Whiteboard-Kun, the one film that kept coming to mind was End of Evangelion, and I was like, "Ooh, this is giving me End of Evangelion vibes, not in a good way, especially with the mankind assimilating." I was like, "Ooh, I'm not aboard it." But one thing I think is kind of cool is the idea that Tengen is not on board with the assimilation idea. They're like, "Look, I've been through different bodies throughout the ages. I'm not about it. I really don't want to combine with a bunch of people into a primordial soup. Not feeling it." Also, I think it's kind of interesting that Tengen is not on board with the idea of the entire world just ceasing to exist, because that's essentially what's going to happen if this whole evolution of mankind, it's like an end of Evangelion. We're all going to become part of the primordial soup, and Tengen's like, "I'm not about that life. I like the world as it is, and I like being these barriers, and because if you think about it, Tengen kind of has this sort of I don't want to say peaceful existence, but they kind of just get to do what they want. They don't have any obligations. Tengen's like, "I don't got to worry about a 401k. I don't got to worry about a job. I just sit here and kind of watch over the barriers and just live my little life peacefully and watch everybody else and people watch for thousands of years. It's been a fun time." And it's kind of rare because usually when you have characters that are immortal, they're kind of done with it all. They're kind of ready to go. The whole Angel character was giving me such Seraph of the End vibes. I'm not going to lie. And if you've read Seraph of the End and been watching it like I have, there are a couple characters that are immortal and they're just kind of done. They're just done with it. They're like, "I've been around forever. I'm tired of it. Let's just end the world so I can get on and just cease to exist." And so that's it's interesting to see Tengen from a perspective that they don't necessarily want that. They're like, "I really don't want to cease to exist." Or Tengen is thinking, "I don't know if we'll cease to exist. I don't know if this will create an entirely new scenario." And Tengen's like, "I kind of like how it is now. Really don't want to find out what this alternative is. So let's just keep that from happening." But yeah, I like Tengen's character. I think they're fascinating. The fact that Yuki and Tengen have spoken before is interesting. And everybody's like, "So this thing is a person. This person is Tengen." I'm not going to lie. Tengen is giving me a little bit of vibes of a character from Bleach. A little bit. Specifically, two characters. One that I'm not happy with in the original Bleach story, but I'm going to watch the 1,000-Year Blood War arc. We'll see if Kubo did some revisions and workshopping on that. And the other being a character once they reached a certain point. I'm not going to spoil it, but if y'all know what I'm talking about, sound off down below. Just no 1,000 Blood War arc spoilers. I'm going to be getting to that later this spring. So yeah, this is not our first time meeting Yuki Tsukumo? Is that how we're saying it? Yeah. And Yuki does not seem pleased. It seems like the last time that Yuki and Tengen met, it was not a fun experience. Yuki was not thrilled or amused by it, and now they've come back to try and talk to Tengen again to get some answers. I feel like it was very well set up having, over here in the green, having Choso and Yuki stay behind. Choso's like the most level-headed person, so having them stay behind with Tengen. Also, since Tengen has been there forever and knows many things by looking at the barriers, then I'm sure Tengen might be able to give Choso some answers to questions they might have. And whatever questions Yuki has, I feel like Yuki being there to talk with Tengen is going to trigger backstory events with Yuki. We'll get to figure out what her deal is. I'm a little worried about that for reasons, because we're going to talk about this. And this whole plan, they lined it all out. And as they were lining out all of the contingencies, all of the things, a couple things came to mind. And we're going to talk about that. But I was like, this leaves a lot of gaps for errors. This leaves a lot of room for chaos and things to go poorly. That does not bode well in a shonen, and I appreciate Gege as a writer saying, "Okay, look at this well laid out plan. Look at this well laid out backstory. Look at all this laid out. Now, you see all those gaps for errors and stuff? I'm going to go crazy in that, so get ready." And I'm like, because it does leave a lot of room for things to go shit. And I'm like, so we're going to talk about that as we go through this. And she's like, "Why did you choose the Tomb of the Stars?" And he's like, "I was wary of you being aligned with Kenjaku." And so I can't tell what's going on in people's hearts after all. So that is something rather important. I'm going to be using this blue marker to outline some little extra notes that we have down here. So Tengen is not psychic. And I know reading people's hearts does not lend to that, but I think that's important to note. Tengen is not psychic. Tengen, I like also the idea of, even though Tengen's immortal, they're not an omnipotent being. They're like, I ain't God. I don't know what y'all are thinking. I don't know who you're aligned with. I don't know what your end goals are. He's like, I'm just an ageless dude that's sitting here trying to keep it all together. So I like that about Tengen. And so Tengen was worried that they were aligned with Kenjaku. And so we go from there. They're like, Kenjaku. And they're like, yes, what was once Noritoshi Kamo. So that's important to note. Noritoshi Kamo is the formerly known as Noritoshi Kamo. I feel like Kenjaku is just Brain-Kun. Is that just Brain-Kun in Japanese is Kenjaku? Can I just call him Kenjaku now? I like saying Brain-Kun. It's fun. I'm going to keep throwing this to my dog while talking to you all. I like saying Brain-Kun. It's fun, but Kenjaku is great too. The sorcerer currently inhabiting Geto's body. So, thank God that Tengen is able to fill in some gaps, because one of my biggest tropes that I loathe in stories is miscommunication, and when characters aren't up to speed, when they could easily be up to speed if a character's in the room that knows things they should know. It is like one of my least, it is so inconvenient. I'm like, you have a character there that knows everything. Have them explain to you what's going on. And thank God Gege does that. They're like, oh yeah, Tengen's gonna let him know. He's gonna keep him up to speed. It's gonna be all good. A net of compassion and rope of salvation, huh? So is that what their name stands for? A net of compassion and rope of salvation? He didn't even try for sarcasm. I like that Yuki's like, yeah, his pen name is really on the nose. Being a little heavy-handed and preachy. Which Yuji brings up, like, why is he doing this? And that is a big mystery still. Why is this happening? And I like that in all of this, Yuji just looks at Tengen and goes, why are you like that? And Megumi's like, you can't just ask people these questions, Yuji. You can't just ask them why they're like that. I like Megumi's like, it's ballsy of him to insert himself into the conversation. And look, to be fair, Tengen kind of takes the Yoda route where Tengen's like, well, I'm not a more... He's like, 800 years you reach, look as good you will not, is basically his answer. Like, the Empire Strikes Back Yoda is what he answers with. But he also says that this isn't real. This is just an imagination of what you perceive to be me. But I'm actually kind of a lot more temporal and abstract now that I don't have a vessel to be a part of. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of crazy. Again, getting into some Neon Genesis Evangelion sort of things. He's like, I failed to assimilate 12 years ago. My aging has accelerated. And so I'm no longer just an individual. I'm now the world itself is who I am. Which, I mean, here's the thing. One thing about Tengen's personality that kind of draws back on what I said earlier is Tengen, for being immortal, has had opportunities to cease to exist. Now, by ceasing to exist, they could take the world with them, and that's a problem. But the fact that Tengen has chosen a vessel all of these times and pursued it means that they still want to exist in this world. Now, Tengen is literally Zordon from, like, Power Rangers. They're literally Zordon from Power Rangers. They're like, I'm kind of part of the Earth now, and I'd really appreciate it if you guys would not let the world be destroyed, because then I cease to exist, and I really don't want that. That's why I've pursued immortality. Really would like to keep existing, you know? Which is fascinating, because if Kenjaku, aka Brain-Kun, gets their objective met, then the evolution of mankind throughout Japan is going to happen. But as Tengen points out, that evolution could destroy the entire world as we know it. So does Kenjaku not realize that? And if he does realize that, then what is the point? Now, also, what this story was reminding me of in this episode was not just End of Evangelion, but was also kind of reminding me of Berserk. And I'm going to go into a little bit of a Berserk tangent with a little bit of Berserk spoilers. So if you have not read Berserk and you don't know anything about Berserk, do I think that Gege knows of Berserk? Absolutely I do. It's like a phenomenon. But if you don't want Berserk spoilers, just kind of ignore until this is gone. Okay, so I'm going to get into Berserk spoilers real quick. Griffith, who is one of the characters in Berserk, he evolves to a higher plane of existence, kind of like Tengen in a little way, but his attitude reminds me more of Kenjaku. And Kenjaku in Berserk, Griffith, once he gets to that evolved plane, he decides that he wants to not only rule over the world, but he wants to expand into other dimensions, into other realities, and potentially see. He basically gets bored once he becomes OP, and he decides that he wants to go and see what else is going on in the rest of existence, and maybe he won't be bored after that. Now, do I think that Brain-Kun is bored? No. Do I think Brain-Kun is in the same mindset necessarily as Griffith? No. But that idea of I want to escalate things and make things as chaotic as possible to ascend into a new dimension of existence and just see what happens. Yeah, that kind of is what this is giving. This is very much giving, I want to evolve mankind, and if the world is destroyed, well, I guess we'll just find out what happens after that. And I'm like, oh, so this is kind of like, this is basically ascended Griffith and what he's like. Okay. This is basically him. Okay, got that. Got that we've established that similarity to characters, but end of Berserk spoilers. That's kind of just where we're at. That's where my thought process went, is that Geto, aka Brain-Kun, Kenjaku, is like, let's just evolve mankind, see who survives. I think Kenjaku thinks highly enough of himself that he thinks he's going to make it through. I think he's that delusional and egotistical that he thinks he'll make it through regardless of the evolution. And Tengen's kind of like, I don't know. I feel like Kenjaku is very optimistic about his prospects post-evolution of mankind, and Tengen's like, let's hold on a second. I'm a little more pessimistic about this. But he establishes he's now, the world itself is who I am now. And that's when Yuki's like, so there wasn't another plasma star vessel back then, which is relevant to note. Because Yuki had told Geto, being like, it's probably fine. No, it wasn't. It actually wasn't. And I want to bring that up again when we get to a couple of these other little things over here in the final mission part. I'm going to bring that up. Gege is establishing that when a character says, oh, well, this is probably what happened, Gege is establishing in this episode that is not necessarily true. So what that is also telling me as a viewer is I cannot take everything that's being presented in this episode entirely at face value, because there are a lot of contingencies going on behind the scenes that we're going to talk about in this that could down the road be a factor that's problematic. Or it could be very helpful. It goes both ways. So let's get into this. So I liked the fact that as they're talking, the tunnel recedes and everything starts to slowly just become them and Tengen. That part was really creepy, and I really liked it. He's like, that's why there's not a new voice. So Yuki's establishing that that's why Tengen sounds the same as the last time she encountered them. I liked it. I liked that Megumi raises his hand to ask a question. He's like, excuse me, somewhat semi-omnipotent being. Let's talk about this. We came here to learn Kenjaku's goal and how to open the prison realm. Let's also note real quick that as soon as Megumi learns something, Megumi is all about proper names. Megumi knows their pronouns. They use their proper names. They were calling last episode them Noritoshi Kamo. Now that we've established them as Kenjaku, they're like, okay, let's talk about Kenjaku. So Megumi wouldn't use a dead name. I'm just saying. So yeah, they basically say, how do we open the prison realm? And yeah, could you tell us what you know? And Yuji's like, oh, hey, we're getting trapped here. And Tengen's like, of course. But I must impose one condition. Basically, Yuji notices that Tengen has trapped them there, saying, sure, I'll tell you what you need to know, but only if you do this for me. They're like, Yuki, Cursed Womb, I need 2, or Yuta. Basically, Tengen was saying that of all of them, Yuta, Yuki, or Choso were the ones to protect them, and 2 of them need to stay. Now, the reasons why I think he chose them is mainly because of Sukuna. To be honest. I mean, Maki's not going to protect Tengen. That's not going to be of use. Maki is only good in certain capacities and could be a savior at the end of all this. We talked about this last episode, but protecting Tengen is not. I also think that Tengen, what this is doing is pitting Tengen against Kenjaku. This is really becoming two somewhat ancient sorcerers, omnipotent forces against one another. The issue is you also have another ancient sorceress, cursed spirit, Sukuna, that is the third party off here in the wings, right? They're kind of this chaotic unknown, right? Whereas you have Tengen versus Kenjaku. That's what this is leading towards. Obviously, Maki, I think Tengen is playing the long game. Is like, Maki, you're going to be needed for these other things. Don't need you to stay here. You need to go off and do X, Y, and Z. Yuuji and Megumi, I don't think he's keeping Yuuji or Megumi there. One, because Yuuji is tied to Sukuna. And I think that Tengen knows that. And I think that Tengen knows at any moment Sukuna could overtake Yuuji, and that would spell like absolute chaos and no good things. So he's like, nope, not you. And then Megumi, one, I think Tengen might realize that Megumi is tied in with Yuuji and Sukuna, so we don't need him here. Also, we need Megumi to be out in the real world because he's the Zenin clan leader now. There's some permissions he may have to grant. We're going to talk about that, don't you worry. And then also, Megumi has a tendency, I told Be Happy in the comments, I'm surprised Megumi wasn't planning a suicide mission last episode as well, since he's done that every single time. Growth for our character, but I just don't think Tengen wants to risk it. So Yuki, Choso, and Yuta make the most sense to choose from. Glad Yuta is going to be out in the world with everybody else or it might be the worst thing. We'll see. We'll talk about it when we get to that point. But he's like, I need two of you to guard me. And Megumi is clearly visibly like, well, Mother Trucker, there had to be a catch, right? And Yuta's like, well, why would we need to guard you? Are you afraid of being sealed? And that's when he reveals that I could be absorbed by Kenjaku. Now that I have evolved, I'm no longer in a vessel of a human. I'm technically more like a cursed spirit than I am human, which is interesting to note, right? I feel like that in itself, the idea of being more cursed spirit than human, is something that is being a theme that is being developed and cultivated in this story, because Yuji is like a prime example. Itadori at times, when he's possessed by Sukuna, is more cursed spirit than human. So he's kind of in this same realm as Tengen, which then you have to think of, was this part of Kenjaku's plan all along, to create a being that was similar to Tengen, and Yuji's the one that's like that. He just doesn't realize it yet. I don't know, but the problem is, we're going to talk about this whole objective part here in just a second, that Tengen's worried about being absorbed by Kenjaku. So then he starts talking about Kenjaku's objective. Now, there were a couple things, conveniently, at the end of this episode. One of the things I love the most, we'll get to there eventually, is that Gege lined out 4 slabs of information and was like, okay, everything we just talked about over the last 20 minutes, here it is for you to write down at your own convenience and to talk about later. But there were some things left out of those slabs of information that I want to go through with all of you. So Kenjaku's objective is to force mankind to evolve. That's a tried and true villainous motivation. Mankind's not evolving fast enough, we're just going to force it. We've seen that in stories before. It's just the way he's going about it. Megumi, interesting that he's heard about that. I wonder if he heard about it from Gojo. How does he intend to do it? Why not just turn everyone into sorcerers through idle transfiguration? Okay, so I want to get into this, get past what he's talking about there, and get to the point where we have a little bit extra information that wasn't included in that last slab. Okay, so here's the thing. Kenjaku's objective, and I guess this part here was the formerly known as Noritoshi. I've got a few more things about the 6 eyes that I want to put in this part here, so we're going to leave that open. But basically his idea is to evolve mankind throughout Japan. So this is the way in which he's planning to go about it. Now, the idea is that he couldn't transfigure everybody. This is all, the thing is made out. Basically, the problem is, if one person that is involved, I'm just going to go through the whole thing with y'all. Gege, what are we doing? So, 12 years ago, Toji interfered. I want to inject some things into this as well. 12 years ago, Toji interfered with Riko being assimilated with Tengen. If this had gone on, then things would have been a lot different. That's what I want to point out. I'm a big fan of nonlinear history, which is this belief. I've talked about it in other shows on my channel. It's this belief that time is not linear. It's not only linear. Yes, things happen in 1, 2, 3 order, first, second, third, but also at all given times, there are thousands, if not millions of other things happening around you that influence not only your actions, but what's going on around you as well that will influence your actions later. So all of these contingencies have happened to change things to the present, to the way that they are. So do I think that Kenjaku anticipated Toji getting involved in all this 12 years ago? No. I don't think Kenjaku even had a clue Toji was going to get involved in the way that they did. Do I think that they knew Toji was going to kill Riko and stop this assimilation? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. But I do think that once they learned about this, what this is establishing in one sense is that Kenjaku is adaptable. And that's scary. The idea is that Kenjaku can adapt. They are a brain that can adapt in the moment. That is terrifying. Because sometimes in stories, when the things don't go the antagonist's way, they're like, curses, foiled again, back to the drawing board, I'll get you, Gadget, and then they leave into the night. With Kenjaku, they're like, oh, plan A didn't work? Okay, let's now do plan B. Let's now do plan C. They have all these extra reserve plans in the wings. I don't like that. That doesn't pronounce good things for our protagonists. So Toji interfered and stopped the assimilation from Tengen, which would have been one area that could have changed everything. Toji's a catalyst for all of this, is what I'm saying. But because of that, the star plasma vessel was taken out. So because the assimilation failed, Tengen evolved to the point where they are. And then we have 2 options that will happen from there. So this was 12 years ago. Something else I also want to point out. How old is Yuuji? Is Yuuji 16 or 17? Yuuji was 4 years old at this point. 4 years, about that, 4 to 6 years old at this point. That means that Brain-Kun was already in Kaori when that went down. Meaning that Kenjaku already was planning something else in the moment, was already working on other plans at the time before any of this even happened. The idea that Kenjaku has multiple plans in the wings at all times is scary, and we should be afraid of that. I don't like that. That means that if anything doesn't go according to plan with this, Kenjaku could adapt to it and make it work in his favor either way. I don't like that. So, but just keep in mind, Yuuji was a kid already. Brain-Kun was already in Kaori at this time, unless they'd already moved on to somebody else. Don't like that idea. So then 6 years ago, when Yuuji was still a kid, like an elementary to middle school kid, they obtained the prison realm. I don't remember if it's been mentioned before, if they'd obtained the prison realm or what that was like. Maybe it was mentioned in season 2. I'm going to find out in the manga, so don't tell me. I'm going to be reading volume 11 or 12 as we go through this season, so I'm going to find out. I'm getting ready to read volume 11 next month, so we're going to find out if it's said to us or not. But 6 years ago, they obtained the prison realm. So they've been planning this. Geto, aka Kenjaku, has been planning this Shakespearean tragedy since the Middle Ages. They've been planning it for years. So then on October 31st, which we established that now it is November 9th. So some time has passed, almost 2 weeks have passed since this started. So that means we have 10 days before the Culling Game starts. 10 games, 10 colonies, not a lot of time. So Gojo is sealed, meaning that the Six Eyes are out. We established that Tengen, the Star Plasma Vessel, and the Six Eyes are formed together by fate. And they're formed together by fate. So when Kenjaku found out that the Star Plasma Vessel was murdered, they sprang into action being like, oh, fate is fortuitous. I will go ahead and start looking for the prison realm because I want to get rid of the Six Eyes. It is important to note that there cannot be two six eyes born and existing at the same time. That takes my Doomsday theory from last week and tweaks it a little bit, because it's kind of one of those things, like, it feels very like Horcrux-esque, if y'all know what I'm talking about from Harry Potter. It feels very much like that. Like, as long as the six eyes exists, there cannot be another. Now, that makes my Doomsday theory both good and bad. On the one hand, if you don't want to hear my Doomsday theory, then wait till I'm done doing this and you can get back. But if you listen to my Doomsday theory last week, that makes this theory bad or good. On the one hand, on the one hand, it would be a reason for Kenjaku to keep Gojo alive, because if Gojo dies, then that means that there will be another six eyes born somewhere in the universe, and then Kenjaku has to start over from scratch, being like, well, shit, the six eyes could be born again and then assimilate with Tengen, and that'll ruin all my plans. So that's one reason why they put them in the prison realm, so that won't happen. The problem is, if Brain-Kun, aka Kenjaku, gets Gojo killed and takes him over, he will have the six eyes technique. And that's a problem. That's a big old problem. That means it's just ensuring that his plan can go through. That makes me feel more nervous. I'm more nervous now than I was last week. That's not good. But anyway, we're not going to worry about that. We're not going to worry about that right now. Doomsday theory over. We're just going to avoid that. But it's on the back of my mind, right? So, either way, Tengen's evolution was caused because of the assimilation failing. Now, that means two things. One, it means they are a target for cursed spirit manipulation, meaning that Kenjaku inside Geto's body could absorb Tengen. So, to go with this theory a little bit, that makes it a little more on the okay, we're still in okay waters so far, that means that Brain-Kun has to stay in Geto's body for now. They have to stay in Geto's body for now. If they leave Geto's body, they no longer have the curse manipulation technique. So that means they wouldn't be able to absorb Tengen, which is part A. We basically have an A scenario and a B scenario. Again, this makes me nervous because Brain-Kun is good at adapting, makes me nervous. But what it establishes is, I think the good scenario, this is the problem. I think the good scenario is if Kenjaku stays in Geto's body, because they are banking on absorbing Tengen. Do I think that means that the actual Geto in with Kenjaku at the helm is going to show up to try to fight Choso and Yuki for Tengen? Yes, it does. I absolutely think that's what's going to happen, and I'm a little scared about that. Choso's all like, I want to talk to Kenjaku about the curse wind paintings. I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Because one, you're not going to get any good answers. You're not going to get any good answers. You think that Kenjaku's going to give you answers? No. He's just going to skirt around it all cheekily. No, you're not going to get any good answers. Do I think that Yuki can stop Kenjaku as Geto? Maybe. I mean, symbolically and story-wise, it's poetry. It's poetry. It's so well set up, because you not only have Choso's parent in the room, like after all the setup we've had with them throughout this series, but also the callback to Yuki talking to Geto all those years ago, and now Kenjaku and Geto's body gets to revisit her, and they have this discussion again. Thematically and symbolically and writing-wise, it's amazing, and I think Gege's genius for it, but as a viewer, I'm like, we don't need to see that. But that's plan A. Plan A is that Geto, they died a year ago, and Brain-Kun was like, score, yeah, thank you, Yuta. Thank you, Yuta, for causing that to happen. You just made my job so much easier. And I'm like, again, everyone's actions have consequences. And these consequences have really been benefiting Kenjaku so far in this series. So they took over Geto, got the cursed spirit manipulation, which they're going to show up to try to absorb Tengen. That's going to happen this season. I guarantee it. And then they absorbed Mahito. They obtained idol transfiguration. And like Megumi points out, they're like, why didn't they just turn everybody into sorcerers? But there was not enough cursed energy, so he couldn't do that. So that plan was out. But again, Kenjaku is adaptable. So when that plan didn't work, we started planning all of this. And that's terrifying. That's terrifying. This is all like within years. That's terrifying. So if they absorb Tengen, if Brain-Kun inside Geto's body shows up, fights Choso and Yuki and wins, they're going to absorb Tengen, which will cause them to assimilate with mankind forcibly, which is going to evolve Japan, and then bad things could happen, which we're about to talk about. The bad things that could happen is that if any one of the people go out of control, the world will end. And Yuki's like, why? Like instant, like why? There's no boundaries between individuals, so evil would spread instantly, and the impurities of 100 million people would flood the world, and what would happen to Tokyo would be recreated on a wide scale, worldwide. And then Yuji asks, well, why would he do such a thing? And Tengen's like, I don't know. He's like, I don't know. There is the evolution of mankind throughout Japan, and the how is to assimilate with Tengen, but we don't know the why. Why? We don't know. That's what's left to be found. That's the big mystery going forward in this series, is why is Brain-Kun going through all of this trouble to have this specific thing happen? But if this doesn't work out, if they can't merge with Tengen this way, then plan B is to assimilate with someone that's not a star plasma vessel, and that's where the Culling Game comes in. And the Culling Game is basically creating a warm-up for assimilation. To me, my theory is it's weeding out all the people that would create the incomplete, out-of-control energy that would throw everything off. Do I think that Kenjaku wants to destroy the world necessarily? Not necessarily. I think that they know the risk and they're gambling, which is insane, but Kenjaku's insane, so checks. But I do think that the Culling Game to them is to weed out the people that would go out of control, because, you know, in shonen logic, you can have an all-powerful character, but the moment they spiral out of control, there's such a vulnerability there, they can be destroyed. Like, that's just basic shonen logic. That's usually the protagonist, like, usually the main villain gets to a point where they're spiraling out of control and it exposes a weakness and the protagonist takes advantage of that weakness and gets rid of them. That's what I think that the Culling Game is designed to do. It's to kill and rid those that would spiral out of control out of the game, warm up for the assimilation, and then the modern sorcerers and awakened sorcerers would be of the appropriate constitution to assimilate with Tengen and evolve mankind without it going awry. Again, Tengen's not really for that gamble. They're like, that's too much of a gamble. Let's not, we're banking it off of just one person not going crazy. Let's not do that. No. So again, Tengen's not wanting to gamble, and Kenjaku is. He's like, I can't tell you what's going on in people's hearts. But wouldn't everything be fine as long as you rejected the assimilation? They're like, yeah, that would be, but that's the problem. Now that I've evolved, I'm closer to a cursed spirit than a human. I can't reject it. So this is the issue. They're like, I can't necessarily object. And if Kenjaku gets a hold of me, they're going to keep me from rejecting. And that's why I need to be guarded. And everybody's like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense now. He's like, I would be absorbed the moment he made contact. I don't like that at all. No, I don't like that at all. We've spent the whole first season of this show showing how simple it is for people to make contact with other people physically. No, that's just, not good at all. That's why they need to be protected. Yep. So he's like, I don't know how he'll manage to break the seal on the Tomb of the Stars. I don't know when he'll manage to do it, but he is capable of it, which is, And so then I love that Yuki asks, why now? Yuki is like, I love that Yuki is getting to the bottom of this, because that was my question. At this point in the story, I'm like, why? Why you were stopped from assimilating with the star plasma vessel, but that was 12 years ago. So he's seeking to absorb you through curse manipulation. But he also has connections to Sukuna. That's the thing too. Kenjaku has connections to Sukuna. We're going to put this here. If you told me, and this is just a theory, I don't know if this is true or not, we'll find out in the story. If you told me that Kenjaku was a big old Sukuna fanboy and he worshipped Sukuna and was like, devastated when Sukuna was sealed away and was like, if he viewed Sukuna as this like evolution of the cursed spirit, like taking it to the next level, and he's like, I want mankind to be like that, and kind of like was obsessed with Sukuna. If you told me he has been experimenting to try to create the perfect vessel to bring him back all these years, I'd believe you. I would believe you. I think that that's why he's obsessed with Sukuna coming back. I think that having the idea of having the most powerful cannon in your back pocket is tempting for Kenjaku. The thing is, I do think there's a little delusion there. I think that Kenjaku, well, maybe not. On the one hand, I think Kenjaku thinks that bringing Sukuna back will elicit some form of loyalty, which Sukuna's like, F that, loyal? No way. But I also think that maybe Kenjaku is smart enough to realize that and is just banking on Sukuna causing enough chaos, but also simultaneously not caring enough to stop Kenjaku with whatever he's doing. He's like, I'll bring Sukuna back. If he's loyal, awesome. If he's not, it'll create enough chaos where I can do what I want and Sukuna won't care. Which again, is terrifying. No, don't like that at all. So he's been a sorcerer for at least 1,000 years. Yeah, and then Yuki's like, why now? And he's like, because I, the star plasma vessel, and the 6 eyes are all connected by fate. I love the concept of the eye connecting the 3 of them, and it's the big blue eye like Gojo's eye. I love it. Connecting them by fate. Which is like this cosmic thing. I love that Tengen's like, it's just fate. It's just cosmic. It's something ethereal. Don't ask me why. I'm just an immortal. Like, and so he says, twice in the past, Kenjaku was stopped by the sorcerer with 6 eyes. Okay, so we need to add this on here. So, Kenjaku, aka Brain-Kun, has been stopped twice by a 6 eyes user. Third time's a charm. Third time's a charm, right? They were stopped twice in the past. They stopped Tengen's assimilation, and the second time, Kenjaku was thorough. So he says the second time he killed. So the first time he was just stopped and realized, oh, this star plasma vessel and 6 eyes stopped me. I need to prevent that from happening the next time. The second time it happened, he killed both the star plasma vessel and the 6 eyes. And the bearer of, what does he say? And the bearer of the 6 eyes within a month of their birth. So within a month. Which look, they don't go into detail about this, but you know what that tells me? Again, Kenjaku is a really good planner. The fact that he mapped out, did his research, and figured out where the star plasma vessel was and the 6 eyes user and killed them within a month of their birth. Kenjaku ain't using ChatGPT to research, y'all. He's going to the mother trucking library and doing his research. Then we get these images. Despite that, the 6 eyes and the star plasma vessel still appeared by the day of my assimilation. And so they still appeared, like within a month of their birth, but it was too late. They had already appeared well enough for the assimilation to occur. After that, Kenjaku altered his strategy to focus on just sealing the 6 eyes instead of killing him and began searching for the prison realm. There can't be 2 people with the 6 eyes at the same time. But 12 years ago, something unpredictable happened and Toji intervened. I like that we get to see Megumi react to it because I don't think Megumi knows a lot about... Also, Tengen does not reveal that Gojo killed Toji. Tengen doesn't reveal that, so that's still not known. But he was physically gifted through a heavenly pact, and he was unique by being free from cursed energy. So at the same time, I want to point out that Megumi and Maki learn about Toji. I understand why they wouldn't know a lot about Toji. One, Gojo doesn't want to bring it up because he's like, I killed your dad, sorry. And Megumi didn't want to know about it at the time. And 2, I doubt anybody in the Zenin clan really wants to talk about Toji because he didn't have cursed energy and he just totally defected and left them, which is like a stain on their reputation. So I like that both Maki and Megumi kind of react though. Damn, also want to point out Megumi looks a lot like Naoya, just without the eyeliner and with the black hair. So he's like, since his heavenly pact placed him outside of fate, he destroyed the fate connecting us. Now, I think that is placing even more responsibility on Maki, because it's basically establishing like, hey, Maki, you're kind of like Toji. You can step outside of fate, which again, I talked about that in the Doomsday scenario last episode. I think that just gives more validity to it, that Maki does not realize how much power she really has at the end of this. And then a young man with the power of cursed spirit manipulation appeared. Without even trying, he had all the necessary pieces other than the prison realm. Again, just the way that fate has intervened, the way that the system has worked out. Kenjaku had no idea. And then along came Toji killing the plasma vessel. And Kenjaku was like, oh, you did my work for me. And then he's like, oh, this guy has an ability that's insanely helpful and totally is crushing on the 6 eyes, and I could use that to my advantage. The universe just gave Kenjaku everything he needed. Just like, here you go. Now, do something with it. Go find the prison realm and you got everything you need. Insanity. It made its ways into Kenjaku's hands. Now, the thing is, Kenjaku got a hold of the prison realm before he had taken over Geto's body. So it was just waiting for that matter of time for things. Like, again, this just proves my point that Kenjaku is playing the long game, and Kenjaku is insanely patient, willing to adapt, and can also have other plans in place if things don't go over well. Like, he literally said at the end of season 2 that he had been carefully picking out everyone that he was going to put the cursed objects on, everyone he was going to awaken the abilities for. Like, I don't think our characters right now are concerned as much as they need to be. If it were me, I'd be like, oh, this is bad. This is very bad. And I don't think they're concerned as much as they should be. But we'll find that out in this series, I'm sure. So then Megumi asks, why is the Culling Game being hosted? And so we have this idea of the warm-up before assimilation. That it's using the cursed energy of the players and the boundaries formed between the colonies as a ritual to send people to the other side. So this whole thing is a big old ritual using cursed energy between the boundaries. I'm going to put this ritual up here. Okay. So then we get our second little second little panel of information in here. That once the warm-up is done, and they use this little like 100% thing. They say mankind is going to the warm-up, and then the assimilation is at 100%. Once it's successful, then the evolution will happen. If you have Tengen and the warm-up together, the assimilation will happen. So basically, you have modern sorcerers that are involved. We'll talk about Shoko here in a second. We have modern sorcerers involved. We have all the idol transfigured, cursed technique acquired, newly renovated and cultivated, incarnated sorcerers are in these colonies. And there are 10 of them throughout Japan. And the barriers in between each of the 10 colonies act as a way to foster the ritual. It's Brain-Kun playing. This is a long game, y'all. It's terrifying. And the modern sorcerers and the incarnated sorcerers are being forced to fight because of the Culling Game rules that Kenjaku has put into play, right? So it's all about getting this stocked up curse energy. They're going to use the stocked up curse energy to move the barriers that are going to ferry people across, which are going to warm up for the assimilation and get it ready to be successful. Just to start the assimilation with me. However, in order to establish that ritual, Kenjaku has been forced to accept several pacts, which are the games of the rule. And that was also established back in season 1, especially at the start of season 2 with Mekamaru about all the pacts, and like you can't go against the pacts, but the pacts give you so much power. And we've established that back in season 1, where if you establish and say them out loud, they get more power and more authority. And I'm like, it's all adding up. So this part is interesting here. It says that killing Kenjaku will not end the Culling Game. Kenjaku put in a fail-safe that if you kill me, doesn't matter, the game's going to still go on. So essentially, Kenjaku's like, if you kill me, it doesn't matter. It's still going to happen without me, so have fun with that, bitches. And now you don't know exactly other ways to stop it, so boo-hoo. So yeah, Killing him will not end the Culling Game. And Megumi's just like, well, son of a bitch. That's not good. It says either all the players must die or all the players must refuse to participate and die. So the Culling Game won't end until then. So as it stands right now, everybody's going to die regardless. That's why they need to create a rule that lets people out of the game if they don't want to participate. It's an insurance to prevent the ritual from being stopped, which is very thorough. And they're like, well, in that case, what do we do? So you have to spend 100 points, not counting the initial point value assigned to them, not counting, oh, that's a bitch move. That's like telling, I'm an English teacher, so I'm sure my students are saying, oh, when you say it's an 8-page paper, it's just 8 pages. And I'm like, well, it's 8 pages plus the MLA. We're excited. And they're like, son of a bitch, what are you talking about? So that's essentially that. So each sorcerer or those incarnated are 5 points. So essentially you have to get 105 points. It's not just 95 plus yourself, it's 105. And each non-sorcerer is 1 point. That's a lot. That's a lot, y'all. That's a lot of people to worry about. I don't like this, y'all. I don't like this. No, that's 20 people, isn't it? Right? I'm failing as a human being. My English brain is like, no. Yeah, it's 20 people. So essentially, you would have to either kill 20 sorcerers. Are there even that many? Well, the people that have been transfigured would count as that as well. So that would work out. Or just 100 non-sorcerers or a combo of the two. Okay. And when Yuuji was like, does this mean I'm going to have to start killing people again? That was so sad. Megumi's like, no, we're going to get around that. I was like, yes. How? I don't know. So we have to add a rule. And we also need to free Gojo at the same time. I love that back shot of Megumi with the prison realm, as well as Yuta sitting there being like, yeah, we need to save Gojo. We need to do that at the same time. The fact they said that man could resolve everything on his own. That worries me a lot. Because, I'm going to be honest with y'all, that worries me a lot. Because Megumi has such faith in Gojo. Gojo has always been someone that could solve everything for him. And my problem is, we as the audience know that Gojo is insanely strong. He's OP, but he can't solve everything. And I think Megumi is looking through rose-colored glasses at Gojo, or blue-colored glasses at Gojo. And I like that Yuta's in that frame, because I think Yuta knows that that's not true. Because Yuta's been around Gojo enough to know, like in Volume 0, when things didn't go exactly according to plan. Because do you think that Gojo wanted his best friend killed? But Yuta killed him anyway. He couldn't solve that. Do you think that Gojo sent Yuta and Miguel to look for the black rope because Gojo knew he could solve everything on his own? He wanted to try to find a contingency for when things went bad. He told Yuta to watch after Yuji because he thought things would go bad. Megumi is putting Gojo up on this pedestal of, well, if he gets out, everything's solved. But we've just seen throughout this series that, yeah, Gojo's OP and he can solve most things by himself, but he's not perfect. And he's not immortal. And he's not infallible. It's like, I get worried when Megumi puts all that faith in him, because I'm like, I feel like Gege is foreshadowing that something bad's going to happen to Gojo where that's not going to be the case, and Megumi's going to have to step up. And Gojo has even told him, that's another bit of foreshadowing, Gojo's even told him prior, being like, you're going to have to step up and be as strong as me, no matter in whatever form that takes. And he's like, you're capable of that, but you're going to have to do it. Because he believes Megumi can because of Toji. So I don't like that. I don't like that at all. So what we have is the Itadori friendship mission. Friendship mission. So we have two objectives. One is to free Gojo. One is to rescue Sumiki and the other reluctant players, meaning the ones that don't want to participate. Now, the ones that do want to participate, they're up for grabs at this point. So, freeing Gojo involves obtaining the prison realm, but Kenjaku possesses it, so that's out. We can't do that. But Tengen has the back realm. That is the moment he said the back, I was like, that is such Gege playing the long game himself, because in season 2, when they're like, prison realm, front gate open, I was like, front gate open? Well, is there a back gate? There is! There is, actually! Who knew? Foreshadowing! Gah! So yeah, so we have the back gate, but you have to have the front gate in order for the back gate to work. So that's not good, but we can force it open. But we can force it open. There are 3 methods of doing so. The first method, as we come to find out, was, let me find this, the back gate. They're like, oh, well, he probably found it somewhere abroad. That's Gege just being whatever. I do like that it has one eye that's sewn shut. The one eye sewn shut is giving me such Brain-Kun vibes, though. It was creeping me out the whole time. And they're like, so, I concealed the present of the front, and Gojo was sealed all away with this back gate. So if we open it, but the authority to open is only within Kenjaku. Kenjaku's the only one that can open it. So if Kenjaku says no, which obviously he's going to, you need 3 items that could possibly break it open. Now the problem is, here's the thing. They say that Gojo either sealed the inverted spear of heaven abroad or destroyed it. Now, again, do I think this is probably true? Yeah, there's like a 95% chance that this is accurate. We can't use the sphere of heaven. It's not going to work out. Not going to work out. Very Neon Genesis coded, by the way. But here's the thing. I can't trust anything anybody says in this because we've already been proven wrong. We've already been proven wrong. Like, things that Tengen said in this episode change what we were told by other characters. So I'm like, yeah, sure, you say that the spear was probably destroyed, but you don't have proof. Gojo ain't telling you if he destroyed it or not. Now, if they free Gojo and they're like, did you destroy the spear of heaven? He's like, oh yeah, got rid of that. But what if he didn't? But what if he didn't? So, or worse, what if Geto obtained it when he got a hold of Worm-Kun back in the flashback? I don't know. Possibly. Then they say the same thing. Gojo destroyed the black rope. Now, Yuta and Miguel did go look for it, and they were told there's no more of it left. So the black rope, I believe, is gone. I believe the black rope is gone. Do I believe the sphere of heaven is necessarily gone? I think there's a 5% chance it's still out there, and it's going to be a Deus Ex Machina. That's what I think. I think it could be a Deus Ex Machina. I think Maki could get a hold of it. But that's just me. Because there is too much riding on the third option, Angel. There is too much riding on the third option. I think the black rope is out. I think since Yuta and Miguel couldn't find it. No. Also, the fact, again, Gege playing the long game, the fact that we find out why Yuta left, why he was abroad, it was to find that damn rope. And the fact that all of Gojo's missions, like in between things, have been probably trying to find these items. Now, does that lend me to think that the sphere of heaven's destroyed because Gojo probably would have found it by now or brought it up? Yeah. Yeah, probably. You think he would have brought it back instead of sealing it away so it would have been conveniently there? Yeah. Fine. So chances are, I'm going to say that there's like a 99% chance that the sphere of heaven's gone. But I'm going to keep that 1% out there. Go keep it in the wings. Going to file it away. Then we have this highly contentious third option that as soon as they said it was a living person, I'm like, living people in this game tend to have very, very strong opinions and wills. So I don't know about that. So now we have this third option. I love how much Yuuji and Megumi are just so pissed. They're just, I'm going to take a screenshot of that. They're just so pissed that everything's destroyed. And Yuta's like, oh yeah, we tried finding it, but it didn't work out. So among the players participating in the Culling Game, there is a sorcerer from 1,000 years ago who calls herself Angel. Now, let's talk about Angel. So they're from 1,000 years ago. You know, the same time as Sukuna and Kenjaku, around the same time, which is making me guess that they were kind of like Sukuna within an object that was fed to somebody. That's how I think happened, possibly. they were fed to somebody and they got out, because why the hell would you really... This Angel's entire existence is chaos. I'm sorry. I don't like any of this. No, there's too many contingencies. One, they're from 1,000 years ago. So, I mean, on the one hand with Angel, maybe Sukuna, who's also from 1,000 years ago. Am I possibly shipping Sukuna with Angel already? Maybe. Maybe that's how I roll. Maybe I'm shipping Sukuna with Angel, but Angel probably hates Sukuna. So let's be real about that. But there's just too much contingencies. So I want to look at Angel, though. Angel's gorgeous. Like, Mappa was like, we're going to animate the hell out of this character. Do they look like somebody from Seraph of the End? Oh, 1,000 times. 100%. Yeah. Angel. Green eyes. So I have green eyes. I can totally cosplay as Angel. I love it. Her curse technique can extinguish any other cursed technique. Okay. So Angel's here. She's here. Sukuna's answer of where are the bitches? Here she be. That's another reason why I want to ship them. Angel, there's too much contingency. No. One, does Angel like Kenjaku? Would Angel work with Kenjaku and be all aboard the Culling Game? If that's the case, then no, then that's not going to work for them, because if Angel's all about the Culling Game and all about Kenjaku, she's going to be like, I don't want to work with you all. And why would she help open the prison realm? If she hates Kenjaku, why would she help them? Why would she help these randos? So I think in order to recruit her, Yuji's going to have to let Sukuna take over. But again, does Sukuna care about helping Yuji? Probably not. So then it's like, well, then how is that going to work? I mean, how do you go up? And then if she doesn't like you, we know nothing about her personality. We just see her like hovering over everything now that she's back in the world 1,000 years later. And she's like, what is this tech? What are these buildings? What is this going on? What is a Taco Bell? She's going to be like, what's happening? I'm concerned that convincing her to help them rescue Gojo is going to be a problem and way harder than it sounds. Because Tengen's like, oh yeah, just get Angel to do it. I'm like, yes, convince this 1,000-year-old cursed spirit to help you. Okay. Or, I mean, a 1,000-year-old sorcerer who happens to look like an angel and have these techniques. I'm like, sure, that seems easy. Walk up and do it. No, it's going to be really hard. But also, what if along the way she decides to nullify one of their curse techniques because she gets pissed off at them? That's a big contingency. I just like, nope. You know what? You know what would be amazing? I haven't mentioned him this episode yet, but I'm about to. What if Naoya pissed her off and she just removed his curse technique? What if Naoya? Oh my God. No, I have the best hypothetical, y'all. The best hypothetical. What if Naoya, because Naoya is a misogynist piece of shit, and Angel is this insanely OP female sorcerer with this power. What if Naoya pisses her off and she's like, bye technique, and takes it away, and suddenly Naoya is like Maki. Worse than Maki. Has no curse technique, and he is the exact same thing he has been bitching about and loathing against for years. I want it to happen. I want Angel to cancel Naoya's technique. I want it to happen. I want this female sorcerer to be the reason that Naoya falls. Oh, I need it. I need it so bad. I'm just plotting Naoya's demise this whole season. Just come back for more ways in which Naoya's going to get his ass kicked from here. Also, want to give kudos to Gege for creating strong female characters that are also cosplayable. So thank you, Gege. And then we get the title card. I've already talked for an hour and we're only at the 12-minute mark. So, but it's okay. We're nearing the end. So the Terse technique could open the back of the prison realm. And they're like, well, do you know where she is? I wouldn't just go run and find her. I'd be sending, here's what I would be doing if I were them. Because here's our mission. Our action items are, we are going to have Choso and Yuki guard Tengen. That seems legit. They're going to remain in the Tomb of the Star. We're going to get lots of little fun expositions. Do all that. That's going to be a fun time. They're going to stay and do that. So check. Itadori and Megumi, we're going to talk about them in a minute. Yuta's going off alone. You know what? Yuta's really good working on his own. He's got Rika. He won't get lonely. He can make out with her when he's bored. He's going to go off on his own and do some reconnaissance. If it were me, if I were doing that, He said he wants to stay as far away from Sumiki as possible so he doesn't get involved with that, which that was super nice of Yuta to say. Very courteous to Megumi. Good for that. I'm thinking, if Angel's over in the east colony of Tokyo, is that away from Sumiki? Because if it is, my suggestion would be, in terms of gathering info, I would go talk to Angel. Of all the characters in this room with Tengen, Yuta is the most personable. He's kind of creepy, but he's the most personable and the most sweet. I could see Yuta being like, well, hi, Angel. How you doing, G Golly? Do you want to help us, like, save the world? Like, I would send Yuta to go gather intel. Yuta's good at that. He's good at that. Go gather intel about Angel. Go stalk her for a while. Talk to her. Try to see if you can woo her into helping and do that. Because Yuji and Megumi, I don't think, are the best for that. I wouldn't describe them as the most PR. Yuta's PR. Have him go do that. That's what I would do. But, I don't know. She's in a colony on the east side of Tokyo. The Culling Game barriers reject me, so I don't have more information than that. That's good to know, is that Tengen is not able to get info inside the barriers. You know what, Gege is making sure that things aren't too OP, that things aren't too, like, easy to solve, right? And so then Yuji, we see this, let's start going over things from there. There are 10 colonies assigned by the barriers, crossing a river or the other barrier. Okay, so it's an act that symbolizes crossing the afterlife. Yes, that symbolism. So the colony's barriers, the bridge that crosses over to the other side, which is, you know, being able to access the curse, being able to assimilate with Tengen, essentially. Yeah. So if all the barriers have enough cursed energy within them, then that's going to enable them to assimilate with Tengen, which is not what we want. That is the challenging land, is Hokkaido. Okay. So everyone in Japan was cursed in preparation for the assimilation. That's a problem. I don't like that. So yeah, so how long will the ritual take place? Probably within 2 months. Anytime they give a time length that will go off of, I just think of Dragon Ball Z. Namek's going to explode in 5 minutes, give or take an hour or two, you know. But the Culling Game does have some specific dates established to it. So then we get Shoko. And her thing. So Megumi is mainly focused on Sumiki, which is 10 days from now. Also, I feel like the whole thing with Mechamaru and doing the timer countdown of their curse energy was like a foreshadowing of this, which is interesting. So, basically, players breaching the first rule will be stripped of their technique. And if people would die if they refuse to participate. So he's like, yes, I did say that. So, okay, can we talk about how Shoko is the moment? Shoko is insanely gorgeous. She looks beautiful in this. Also, girl, she cares not about her health. Have you seen those cigarettes and all them booze bottles that are half drank? And then poor Ichiji is like over to the side being like, yes, ma'am. I mean, she can heal herself, so I guess she can use reverse curse energy, so I guess that's how she combats that. But man, what a time. Also, the overflowing ash cigarette butts in there because her two besties are either dead or imprisoned in a box. I feel for Shoko. I feel a lot for her. It also just feels like a parody of itself. Just she's like stripped of their techniques. That rule applies to sorcerers that are joining in later, right? And so then she's like, then stripping isn't being done by idle transfiguration, which is interesting to note. She says, it says stripped, not prohibited from using, so it's not a pact either. So as she's doing that, she's like, it means it'll be doing something to the brain by force. So it's better for the rules if being stripped means death too. So basically you're going to get an instant lobotomy if you don't decide to participate. Otherwise, everybody would just refuse to participate too. So she clearly told this to Ichiji, who relayed this to Maki, because Maki's like, it's as Shoko anticipated. It also means there's no risk for those without cursed energy like me. So Maki is being established as a player with a lot of significance in this, because Maki is going to be one that's not necessarily affected by all of this other stuff, which is crazy, right? Also, poor Maki's eye. I feel for Maki's eye. She only got one eye, and she's all scarred up. Girl. She also looks badass, though. Love that for her. She at least gets a badass look. And they're like, what about Panda? Does Panda have a brain? And Yuji's like, what does this mean from ordinary people who are in the colony? And they're like, well, they get one chance to leave. There's no stipulations about leaving or entering the colonies because that's what gives it so much power, is that there's a little bit of leeway there. Upon entering, the initial goal of leaving the colony, the premise is that players entered of their own free will is important. Which is why we see the comedian at the end. He's going to enter on his own free will. That's going to make it stronger. That's kind of the point of showing him at the end there, to anticipate, like, well, who would enter the Culling Game willingly? Well, people down on their luck. Who's down on their luck? In this economy, a lot of people. So, yeah, So, Yuta's going to gather intel. Maki, in my mind, Maki has one of the hardest jobs of all of this, in my opinion. And Yuji and Megumi are asked to recruit help. They're also asked to recruit this third year that kind of defected, kind of Nanami style. His name is Kenji Hikari. I thought maybe he was, just based on how he looks from the back of his head, he looks like the guy that, I'm going to go back to that. He looks like maybe the guy that was on the rooftop that was smoking a cigarette. Maybe that was him. I don't know. I like that Yuta's like, well, he's a little bit capricious. I'm like, oh my God, Yuta, really? But if he gets into it, he's stronger than me. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. I'm sorry. What? So they're tasked to go get him and recruit people to help out. We'll see how that works. Again, where's Yaga? What's happening with these people? We're going to see. We're going to see what happens. So then we get Maki. He's like, fundamentally, a sorcerer is worth 5 points. They ask who the game master is. And it cannot be Kenjaku, so I was a little bit wrong on that. But instead, it's every individual player is given a Shikigami called Kogani. Kogani is the game master, which is literally the Culling Game has an AI avatar. Go figure. Go figure. We're doing things, ahead of its time. Also, it was making me think of Psychopaths. Kogani was making me think of the little things that follow along and be like, alert, alert, like, listen. Also, Kogani also simultaneously reminds me of Psychopaths and looks like Navi from Legend of Zelda. Listen, Yuta. Like, just interesting. It's best to think of the Culling Game as its own game master. Yeah, so the game master, that does add something to it as well, because it makes the game master kind of this neutral force that when you ask it to incorporate a rule, it can't say no, which would literally be what Brain-Kun would probably try to do. So, okay, it has to be to add the rule. You need 100 points. So you can't eliminate any existing rules, but you could go about it in a roundabout way. Megumi's like, I'm all about going things in a roundabout way. Sure thing. They have to approve any rules except when they would significantly hinder the continuation of the Culling Game. So they can't create the rule that it just stops, but they can create a rule that allows people that don't want to participate to leave, which is good. That's kind of one of the main missions, right? Is to combine rules 6 and 7 together. 6, 7, Gege, why? Why? No, it's 2026. We're done with that. No. Yep. So the game master has to approve those rules. Okay. And Tengen's like, that's only fair. Like, they have to allow that to happen. It has to be a fair ruling since this is such a strong game. So yeah, and then Yuji's like, am I going to have to kill people again? And Megumi is like, no, I have a few ideas. I like that Megumi is thinking of ways to keep Yuji from killing people. Look at him. Look at him go. I love that. So we've organized this information for now. So we have our future actions. Now, Maki's the one I save for last because I worry about hers the most. I'm like, Maki has no curse technique. She can only use curse tools. And her mission is to go retrieve the cursed tools from Juzo Kamiya. I remember his face. She's like, after Gojo was sealed, all the tools from Jujutsu Highs was taken out of the Forbidden Vault, so it's empty now. Well, Choso, that means your brothers could still be there, but the other cursed tools are no longer there. I like that Yuji's like, you're a prince now, Megumi. When we find out that Megumi is like literally the head of the clan, he's like, I'm going to talk about it later. He's like, I don't care. I don't want to talk about it right now. He's like, I'll explain later. She's like, thanks to that, we're free to rummage through the Zenin clan's forbidden vault. But before that, Tengen-sama, she's like, I know. You want Juzo Kumiya's atelier. What is atelier? I'm going to look up the meaning of this. What is the meaning of that? It's a workshop or a shop. A workshop where an artist creates, or a tool shop. So Juzo Kumiya, oh, he's the guy that wanted to make Gojo into a hat rack, right? Isn't that him? Okay. She wants to... Okay, so that makes more sense now. She wants to go get the curse tools from him, the curse tools from the vault, and take them back in and tinker with them. Okay. All right, that makes sense. This is where I think things get dicey, because Maki is not respected by hardly anybody in her clan. And Naoya has a big old chip on his shoulder because he was going to be the 27th head of the Zenin clan, but now he can't be because of Megumi, and he's really, really pissed off about it. And just like I said last episode, Megumi was basically like, I don't know, you go do it, I don't care. So Maki's gonna show up, Naoya's gonna be there and be like, oh, you want our curse tools? Oh, hell no. Which you would think, because Naoya last episode was like, curse tools, I hate them. Who would even use them? Only the weak would use them. Whatever. Piss off on those. You would think when Maki would show up being like, please, sir, may I have the curse tools? He'd be like, go for it. Whatever. But he's not going to be that way because he's a bitch. 1, 2, because Megumi gave her permission, and he's like, well, why did Megumi give you permission? He's not in charge. He's going to be like that. And then 3, he's just going to be an asshole and being like, I don't want you to have the curse tools because I said you can't have the curse tools. He's just going to be a hindrance. He's going to be a problem. And I'm worried about Maki having to waste time dealing with this son of a bitch instead of just getting the tools and go. So there's that. That's going to be fun. Then she's got to go meet up with Panda, and we got to go find him. And then they got to meet up with everybody else. I feel like Maki has the most, like, specific things to do. And the problem is, the more specific things you have to do, the more that could go wrong with those specific things. Whereas Yuta, they're just like, oh, just go walk around. Gather intel. Do what you want. Lots of room for adaptation, lots of room for other plans, lots of room for maneuvering. Yuuji and Megumi, go recruit this guy. Lots of room for maneuvering. You're all good. You two, you just gotta stay here and guard him. Lots of time for things. Maki's got specific things to get done. And that means there's less room for error. So sure. Okay, so Yuta's like, I'll stay by the nearby colonies, but I might be out of contact for a while. That's a bad sign. I don't like that. I don't like being out of contact for a while. That being out of contact for a while basically tells me that Yuta is going to disappear and be like a Deus Ex Machina at some point. Or show up and it's going to be really bad. I don't know. We talked about that last week. And then Yuji is worried. He's like, they're thinking that having Yuta near Itadori would keep Megumi safe, but it would be more efficient for him to go act alone. I like Megumi's like, oh my god, quit worrying about me. It's going to be okay, you two. Like, are you both serious? Let's stop. I love it. It's so cute. He's like, if that happens, you can have him kill you after I die. Don't be foreshadowing this stuff. Don't be putting this out there, Megumi. Don't be saying it out loud, you sons of bitches. And then Yuji's like, I'm trying to prevent that. I love them. The ship has sailed. The ship's out of the harbor. It's out in open waters. Y'all just have to accept that. So yeah. So they talk about Kenji Hikari, the suspended third year. And they're like, just go find him. I do like the fact that we have this cube of information around them. Does it remind me of the prison realm? Absolutely it does. Yes, it does indeed. But that's intentional by Gege's design. So yeah, then we have it all wrapped up. And then, I'm sorry, but Yuji telling Choso, he's like, well, thanks. You've been a big ol' help. And Choso's just like, my little brother? He's crying, and Yuki's like, are you really crying? That shot of Yuji with the hand, that feels like that's the last time they're ever going to see each other. I don't want that to be the case, but it feels like a last shot of him walking away after he thanked Choso. I would like to imagine that that's not the case, but the fact that they're possibly going up against Kenjaku, and you know Kenjaku's going to have Urame with him. Urame, Sukuna's bestie from Sukuna's chef from back in the day. That's a thing, so I don't know what to do with that. Anyway, so the fact that Gege goes to this building that's literally labeled Cocoon, which is literally this comedian like in chrysalis waiting to burst out. Come on now, be on the nose, Gege. And it says franked proficient, like they're being proficient at it. Also, I want to point out that this comedy show, I only think of these comedy shows when I think of Uramichi Onisan. That immediately reminded me of it. But this stand-up comedy moment makes me think of Gege's cover with Gojo and Geto on it. So that's a cool callback. It's neat. But yeah, this guy, he's just down on his luck and is constantly getting berated by the most in-the-closet man possible. Possibly not, but that shirt and pant tie combo? What is this, Ghost from 1992? So yeah, I feel for him already. He seems like if Junpei grew up to be a comedian. That's what he seems like. If Junpei grew up to be a comedian, which maybe Yuuji can reach him. Maybe Yuuji can use his Care Bear stare to reach this man and help him. I don't know. You all are probably laughing at me even positing that. TAKABA. That's his name, TAKABA. I like TAKABA so far. Also, did anybody else get the vibes that Ken and TAKABA, that Ken had a casual thing for TAKABA? Where's my burly man BL with Ken and TAKABA? Where is it? Where is it now? Show me it at this moment. You know what I think is going to happen? Ken's going to die, and it's going to push TAKABA over the edge to be a sorcerer. That's what I think. I think he is Junpei 2.0. I hope he's not Junpei 2.0, but I think he's Junpei 2.0. Because he's basically he's saying in this moment, the Ken guy, as he's smoking, is telling him that, what does he say there? He says, which one are you? Basically, he says, you have the wrong idea. There's people who aren't funny that make it big. But he's like, nah, there are two types of comedian that manage to stay big. Comedians who are always funny, and those who are delusional and delude themselves to believe that they're funny. Which are you? He's like, well, I'd say it's 50-50. No, it's 70-30. No, actually, it's 50-50. No, it's 70-30. And then we have Fumihiko TAKABA as the Culling Game player. I don't know. The fact that he's a comedian and he's got this idea of ratios and wages, that seems to play. I think that's going to play into his curse technique. Is that going to be something similar to Nanami, who does the ratios? I don't know. But I feel like that's going to lead to something happening. He gives kind of a Riddler vibe in some ways, but yeah, so maybe Yuuji and his Care Bear stare can reach him. Maybe not, but this has been, how long have I been talking? Oh God, an hour and a half. Whenever we were going over all of this in the episode, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I'm going to talk for 20 minutes. There's going to be nothing to talk about. But breaking this all down and talking about all the ways in which this can all go wrong is just, so yeah, that's where we're at. Y'all, that's where we're at. No. Anyway, I'm really excited to hear your comments down below. Thank you if you've stayed with me this long. Thank you for listening to my rambles. This episode was great for setting everything up and basically Gege telling us, buckle in, buckaroos. It's about to get crazy. So I'm ready for that. So yes. Definitely want to do an Angel cosplay at some point, but that's going to wait till we get a little bit closer down the line and actually maybe see and interact with Angel. I need to know some personality. But, and then I'm probably not cosplaying as Tengen because you need to see my face. Maybe I could do like white face paint with extra eyes. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. But I'll have a cosplay for next week. It'll be fun. In the meantime, I want to do Kaori as Brain-Kun, but that will basically just be my hair and then makeup. Maybe I'll do that. If it's low-key, I'm traveling next weekend, so I might have to do a low-key cosplay next week. So it'll probably be Shoko, or it will be Brain-Kun Kaori. We'll see. Maybe Shoko. Shoko will be fun. But anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I'm back very soon with more of Jujutsu Kaisen. Bye.